Hello and welcome to another episode of the Contractor Grow Show. My name is Mark Lambreth. I'm your host, and today I'm really excited to speak with Zach Garza at Mend Roofing in the greater Houston area. Zach, thank you so much for being with us today.
Not a problem. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, so you got an interesting story, man. We're excited to kind of jump into this and learn. It sounds like it's been an interesting ride and some really cool kind of points that we found along the way. And then some interesting other stuff that you're doing, not only with your roofing company, which sounds like it's going great, but also with some real estate investing. Would love to learn more about what you're doing there. But maybe you could just give us a quick kind of synopsis of the history of the business, kind of what the road has been like to get here and where you guys are at today.
Yeah, for sure, Mark. So I founded Men Roofing back in January of 2021. I worked for another roofing company prior to that for almost a year. Similar story to probably a lot of other guys. I ended up getting screwed over on a deal. And, that kind of turned me off. But at the time, I had just graduated college at the end of 2018 and just kind of hovered, didn't know what I wanted to do in between that and finding roofing. So that was the best way I knew to make money, right? And I was like, that's what I need to do. So I was looking up the best industries, construction and real estate. And I was like, okay, I'm already in construction. I'm going to get into real estate as well. So I started Mend Roofing. Started out with just myself, had a few buddies that came on and did sales and things like that, mostly focused on the insurance side of things. And then my second year in business, we didn't have a storm all year. And I was like, what am I going to
Oh,
do?
no.
Right. So I switched over to doing a lot of retail work, which is what we mostly do today. We probably do 90% retail work. We complete a lot of repairs, and that helps grow customer base and things like that, and to get into those replacements. So every year we've been growing. So this year was our best year as well. And then last year was our best year. So we keep moving the needle forward. This year I've made quite a bit of investments. We got a van on the road now, full-time project manager to help with overseeing the jobs and things like that. So it's been able to free up my time to help continue to grow the business.
Man, that's fantastic. Congratulations to you. It sounds like you've just started a great business and in a very short time have gotten to some great sales. Looks like you guys have got a great footprint. Meaning there's a couple of distinct locations, and I'm actually curious about this. So, you know, we talk to folks, contractors at all different levels, that in all different ages, and I get the sense that, I mean, you're a young guy, but you've really kind of come into this and just hit this hard and made a lot of really great moves in a short period of time, have really established the brand. This is something I don't see a lot, and I really am curious about your thinking on this, why you've done this. It's interesting to see, and it's something that we absolutely recommend as a company that helps contractors grow their business. Is that you guys originally started in Katy, Texas, kind of a far western suburb of Houston, and then you also opened a location in Spring, but you set up a separate Google Business profile, which is great because for roofers, really ranking locally, advertising locally, having a local footprint is really kind of helpful. And I mean, that's something that we try to talk contractors into doing all the time, and they don't necessarily want to do it or take the time to do that. What was your strategy on deciding that we've got a bunch of reviews already in Katy, but we're going to move up to this other area, Spring, another area of Houston? What's the thought around that, and why did you choose to do that?
So when I first started Mend Roofing, I was working with the marketing company and they were doing some research. All that stuff was foreign to me. And they actually recommended Katy because I live on the northwest side. So I'm actually in between Katy and Spring.
Okay.
So the recommendation for me was, hey, let's get into Katy. I think this is a good market that we can get into. And I was like, perfect. You're the expert. Let's do that. So we hit the ground running with that. And then over the years, I started doing a lot more work up there on the north side, Spring, Woodlands, and Cypress and things like that. And back to what you said, as far as having that local footprint, as far as long term, it's definitely made things on the front end. I have to do double the work on Google My Business and things like that, double the amount of reviews in both locations. But I wanted to have that local footprint up north as well, because that's the area that, I prefer. I live closer to that area. So it makes my life a lot easier working up there. but I did want to have both Google locations because in Houston, you can find a roofer on every corner, right? So if we're only down there in Katy, as far as getting leads and things like that, it'd be much harder for customers to find us up there on the north side where I actually prefer to work. But they're both equal distance from my house. We go all over Houston, but that was kind of the idea of having two locations. And then also just long term, if, we're building this brand up, we have a bigger footprint and just gives us more accessibility to the Houston area.
Interesting. Yeah. So just to kind of clarify for our listeners, when folks are looking for your company, if they're looking for a roofing company, Google everyone's logged into Chrome on their phone. Google knows where your phone is. And so if I type in roofer near me and I'm on the east side of Houston versus if I type in roofer near me on my phone and I'm in Katy, on the west side of Houston, I'm going to get two completely different sets of results. And so because Zach has been wise enough to set up two different Google business profiles. And I mean, you can really set up multiple of them. You need a new office, a new phone number, kind of go through that process. It looks like basically a franchise to Google. When you do that, you establish a new footprint. And so, 10, 15 miles around that radius of, Katy and now Spring, Zach is covering both of those. And so it's a massively larger footprint. And maybe at some point, if you want to get into some other areas, you might even do that some more. I mean, how that process works now. Like you say, there's extra work, extra reviews. If you're having some review, you may have to review both locations. But it's rare that we see that a contractor really understands that. And I was just really excited to see that before our podcast here to kind of talk about that. So fantastic. I love your story here. You talked about in some of your socials and things, kind of having an epiphany moment where almost kind of a deliberate financial awakening of sorts. But, when you were younger, you were trying to figure out how to stretch a single deli meal for the entire day. Then, got into sales and kind of completed a stint at sales to actually give yourself seed capital to start your business. What are some of your values around just sort of finances and being kind of thrifty? And how has that helped you be a good business owner and you get to the ultimate success that you've had?
Right. So in college, I got my degree and I have a bachelor's in business management. And so I've just always kind of been frugal with my money. In college, you don't have much of it, right? So
Right.
You're trying to stretch what you have. But I have gone times where stretching, one meal for multiple meals out of the day, because that's what I had to do, right? Finances, that has been ever since I graduated college, figuring out what I wanted to do with my life. I don't come from a lot of money or anything like that. So in my eyes, I have younger siblings and it's like, I want to be someone that they can look up to and see me doing successful things and know that they can do it too. Didn't always have, a figure and things. I'm the only one that owns a business in my family. I'm the only one that went to college. And so there's a lot of firsts that I've done and I've just figured it out on the way. But as far as finances, like ultimately it comes down to, I want to be a provider. I want people to be able to rely on me. But I want to do all these things. And in order to do those things, I know that I need money to do it. So I created a plan. I've done a lot of personal development, gone to events and had mentors and things like that. And I needed to do that. I just understand that you need guidance. I'm not real big on trying to reinvent the wheel. So I like looking at people who have the success that I want and then mimicking those actions. And that's ultimately what it boils down to for me at the end of the day.
Well, I love it. And so along those lines, we saw that you also are very interested in multifamily real estate, have done some work or, been a part of the program with Grant Cardone. Grant Cardone, major influencer for me and a number of our friends and, people that we love too. Grant Cardone, among other things, he built, a huge fund and went in the last, 10 years and basically kind of made himself a billionaire with creating a fund and then investing in multifamily all around the country and, doing a lot of speaking and written a lot of books and things as well. Many listeners, I'm sure, are familiar. But so you went and joined Grant Cardone's 10X program, is that right? And also got into some of your first real estate investments here in the last year or two.
Correct. So after my first year of business, I had some capital laying around. I hit the ground running and did pretty well. He has sales guys calling all day. So they got my number and I sat on the phone with them one day. I was out in the field door knocking and was on the phone with one of their guys for like an hour. And I was like, man, I don't know if I want to come out there. And it was focused on real estate. I knew I wanted to do real estate, but I was just like, man, I don't know. I got to get a hotel, fly to Florida, all these things. Ultimately, I ended up doing it. And that's kind of where I got my start in real estate. I did some research prior, but going into an environment like that, you see the success that's in the room. There's a lot of money there. There's a lot of people that are already doing these things. So I met a lot of great connections. But so everything I've done with Grant has pretty much been on the real estate side. He's, like you said, one of the biggest influencers in that area. And I was doing this back in 2021. And so just learning about the real estate, I knew roofing is my main income now. That's what's going to feed me to be able to invest, handle my day-to-day life, bills and things like that. But I wanted that long-term plan as well, to where I have solid investments that are long-term. So while I'm still working day to day, I'm not just stacking up all this cash. I'm reinvesting it in my business and then also in real estate. So I have that longevity as well. So that's really where the stuff I've done with Grant, I was a part of his 10X club as well, his real estate club. Met a lot of great connections. I was absolutely brand new to real estate. So it was like drinking from a fire hydrant at the time. But like I said, the connections that I made through that, I still talk to many of those people today and have even done some work for them since they're on the real estate side. If they're looking at deals in Houston or own deals, I'm able to provide my services for them as well. So it's been super beneficial. There was a lot of money spent, but I don't regret it. Like I said, I do a lot of investing in myself, and each year we keep growing, keep getting better. And that's what it's all about. So,
man, that is fantastic. And so can I ask you regarding roofing and mend roofing, you're spending a lot of time in the business there. You're making money in the business and you're reinvesting some of it into the business to grow it, whether it be different, marketing campaigns as well as equipment and the different things you need to grow the business. You're also taking time and some of your extra income and putting it into real estate. How do you make a decision? How do you kind of choose, how much time and or percentage of income you're going to allocate? Because, that's not always easy. And I imagine the multifamily stuff that you're doing, this is like a really long-term play. But I mean, even that has got, financial requirements, some work needs to be done, or some emergencies need to be handled on the real estate itself. Do you have a way of kind of determining this is how much kind of time and percentage of my income I'm going to put into my main company over here versus how much I'm going to allocate to these long-term investments and or kind of grow them over time? I mean, will you transition? I mean, what does that thought process look like for you?
So I don't think I will transition full time. I mean, I like roofing. I meet a lot of great people doing it.
Mm-hmm.
My tolerance for risk is pretty low, or pretty high, actually, should I say.
Okay.
So early on with Mend Roofing, it was just me for the most part. So I had low overhead. I didn't have any employees and things like that. So now I take those things into account. But early on, Grant always said something, cash is trash. You need to go to zero at the end of the year. And so first couple of years, I reinvest my money in real estate, make sure I have 3 to 4 months of expenses that I could cover. But at the end of the day, like I said, early on in my journey, I don't come from much. And so everything that I have, I've worked really hard for. And I believe that if I lost everything today, that I would be able to do it again. And so I rely on the skills that I've learned along the way. Because whenever you spend your money, it's like, oh, shoot, I got to go make some more. So it keeps that hustle and it keeps that drive going. And that's kind of the mindset I take whenever I do investments and stuff. Now that the company's growing, I do have an employee and we have a van and stuff like that, more equipment. My overhead has grown. So I keep that into account. But I think my background in just being frugal, being good with my money, making wise decisions, and having that business management degree helps me able to manage those things because my main priority is Mend Roofing. Like I said, that's where my income comes from. I have homeowners that rely on me. We have warranties out there. So not reckless with my money and just, oh, we can't afford to do this or anything like that. So my main priority is Mend Roofing and the homeowners that trust me with with their home. That's priority number one. And then we're doing really good. I get some extra money. I find opportunities, whether it's partnering with people or things like that to get into real estate. Because of course, like you said, those things do have ongoing expenses and things like that. I did a lot of research before I got into real estate. I researched for about 3 to 4 years. And then at the beginning of this year, I actually got my first 11 unit property. And so there was a lot of time between getting that and on the learning curve of understanding everything that's going on, what's required and what's needed. And so my goal is to buy properties that cash flow from day one. So that way you don't buy it and it's like, oh shoot, we have to throw in X amount of money. Otherwise this thing's about to implode.
Wow. Amazing. I saw that you also, is it correct, you co-host and or attend kind of a 35-member networking group in Spring, meets every week?
That is correct. BNI, Business Networking International.
Love it. Hey, can you tell us about, I've been to some BNI meetings. It never really completely caught on with me, quite honestly, kind of in the marketing space for what we do. But I've heard a lot of people have a lot of great success with that. And how has that worked for you? And what's the secret to kind of making BNI meetings a great networking and or business building tool?
Right. Yeah, I've seen a few marketers come and go in our group. I think it is a tougher one for that specific setting. But as far as home services, everyone is local to the area. Luckily, I was fortunate enough to join a really amazing group to where, I see those people probably the most out of anyone else because I meet with them for an hour and a half every single week. And we do small events outside of that just to build those relationships. But for me, being in roofing, being in home services, majority of those people are a little bit older than me. So they've already been established people inside of their communities or in their neighborhoods and things like that. A lot of them are homeowners. And so me providing a good service, showing up when I say I will and things like that, it's given them confidence to refer me, not only for their homes, but also to their neighbors and family members and things like that. BNI, I've been in it for 2 years. My membership's coming up soon. I plan on renewing it. It has been super beneficial for me. And it's also tough being a roofer, finding a good group where that space is open because it's only one slot per industry. So it's all referral basis. At first, it felt a little bit old school, spending a lot of time there and things like that. But I mark it out of my calendar. I make it a priority. I'm there every single week. It's definitely paid off. Otherwise, I wouldn't keep investing that money to be inside of that group.
Sure. Wow. Amazing. Fantastic. Well, what a great story. A lot of great information here that you've shared here today, Zach. And guys, if you're listening to this episode, there's a lot of gems in this that I think, I don't know, it may be worth listening to again. Okay. Zach is a young guy. He's social media savvy. He's got some great profiles, posts a lot, and has in a very short amount of years really gone from zero to building a great business. We're here at the 4-year mark barely, and it's really inspiring to hear what you've done, Zach. And I think it's gonna be very exciting to hear what happens with you here over the future. The focus on being thrifty, frugal in the business, doing a lot of self-development. I can totally see that. Getting some mentors like with Grant Cardone. And even just, I wrote this down, cash is trash, go to zero at the end of the year, right? It's a powerful quote. I've never actually heard Grant say specifically that. So interesting. Yeah, cash disappears and, investments stay. So we can take the cash and put it into investments. And I just love to hear that you started your journey with real estate in a really solid way. So fantastic, Zach. Well, if folks are in the kind of greater Houston area, what are a couple of good ways to get in touch with you guys?
Yeah, so the best way is you can find us on our website at mendroofing.com, or you can look us up on Google. We're pretty easy to find. But I was actually at a homeowner's house the other day, and they're like, man, we just got our roof done a few months ago, but if we would have known you at the time, like we would have loved to use you. And so that dawned on me. It's like, I need to get more out into the community and get, just meeting more people, because we're a smaller business, but we take care of our homeowners. And a big thing for me is service after the sale. So we're in construction at the end of the day. Something's bound to go wrong, but I think something that separates a good contractor from a bad contractor is answering the phone after you've made the sale, you've done the roof, and then taking care of them after the fact, getting out there in a timely manner, fixing the issue, and just keeping your homeowners home safe.
I love it. Fantastic. So mendroofing.com, MEND, Mend Roofing in Katy, Texas, Spring, Texas, and the larger Houston area. Fantastic. Well, Zach, thank you so much for being with us today. We'd love to chat with you here in the future, and hope you guys have a really great holiday season.
Awesome, Mark. I appreciate it. You too.
Okay, all right, bye-bye.